Fantasy football drafts are coming up, so I decided to create a list of 3 players that you need to be drafting in the first round. And you need to make sure you get one of these guys, especially if you have a top 8 pick in fantasy football. I'm guaranteeing you that these 3 players will absolutely explode, starting off with Bijan Robinson. Reports are saying that he's going to have a CMC type role, and the last time we saw CMC was last year, and he absolutely exploded. There is also zero backfield competition. I mean, you can't tell me Tyler Algier is going to take any touches away from Bijan Robinson. There's a scenario where I can see Bijan Robinson scoring 400 fantasy points this season, and that is not even a joke. If you have the first overall pick in your fantasy football drafts, I would highly consider taking Bijan Robinson. Also, let's not forget, he is at a perfect age for fantasy football running backs. Running backs around this age always explode. I mean, look at Saquon Barkley's rookie season. Another thing that I think people are overlooking is that Bijan Robinson finally has a good quarterback. I mean, last year, he never had a good quarterback. Now they bring in Kirk Cousins. And even if he isn't playing the full season, they still have Michael Penix, who is a very good quarterback. And back to Tyler Algier not being a good running back, Bijan Robinson is going to have insane volume this season, the type of volume that will guarantee you a top 5 running back performance. Obviously, if you don't get injured. I have Bijan ranked above Christian McCaffrey for fantasy football this season, and I don't understand why there's much of an argument for that. CMC is a lot older than Bijan Robinson, and I expect Bijan Robinson to absolutely explode this season. Let's also not forget that CMC is dealing with a calf injury, a type of injury that you don't want to use him that much for, especially when the 49ers are competing for a Super Bowl. Why would you push CMC absolutely to the ground? If I'm at the 101 for fantasy football, there are 3 guys I'm considering. It's Bijan Robinson, it's CeeDee Lamb, and it's Breece Hall. But I would definitely draft Bijan Robinson with the 101. Who are you guys drafting with the 101? I'm taking Bijan Robinson or the 2 other players I said. There's no reason why Bijan Robinson will not be a top 3 fantasy football running back this season, and I'm trying to draft him in every single league I can. Now, the next player you need to be drafting in every single first round is Breece Hall. Just like I said earlier, there are 3 guys I'm taking. It's Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and CeeDee Lamb. There's a great chance this guy finishes as the RB1, especially if Aaron Rodgers plays the whole year. Let's not forget, this guy's starting quarterback last year was Zach Wilson, and he still finished as the top 3 fantasy football running back. And he had a limited role from weeks 1 to 9, and he absolutely exploded after that role was not limited. In fantasy football, when you have a good quarterback, most of the time you will have a good running back as well, because if you have a good quarterback, your team is usually good. And that means you're going to be up late in games and you're just going to have to run out the clock. It also means you won't be down in games, which means if you're down in games, you won't be running the ball as much and your quarterback is absolutely going to be slinging the ball just to get back into the game. Usually good fantasy football running backs have good quarterbacks and are on a good team. And I do believe this Jets team will at least go 8-9, which is perfect for Breece Hall. And let's not forget, there's absolutely no backfield competition for Breece Hall. Yes, they drafted Braylon Allen this year, but I don't think he's going to be much of a competition towards one of the best running backs in fantasy football of Breece Hall. And let's not forget that Breece Hall does have pass catching upside. He was solid in the pass catching game last year, and that was coming from one of the worst quarterbacks that we've seen in a while of Zach Wilson. No offense, Zach Wilson. But now he is one of the best quarterbacks of all time, throwing him the ball and feeding him the rock in Aaron Rodgers. Also, let's not forget that the Jets have one of the best O-lines in the league. They just drafted Olu Fashanu and signed Tyron Smith in free agency. This O-line is going to be one of the better units in the league, and that is going to lead to Breece Hall getting more holes open and being a better fantasy football running back. If I have a top 3 pick in fantasy football, there's a great chance I'm drafting Breece Hall because of all of these factors. And if you have a top 5 pick in fantasy football, you want a guy that you think can finish as the overall RB1 or wide receiver 1. And in this case, I think there's a great chance that Breece Hall can finish as the RB1 in fantasy football. The next player that you need to be focusing in your first round of fantasy football drafts is 100% Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra St. Brown was one of the best fantasy football wide receivers last season, and in almost every single game, he had double-digit points. There's nothing wrong taking this guy in the top 3 fantasy football drafts. Yeah, in your draft room, people may look at you funny, but you'll know deep down that you just drafted an absolute stud that you know will get you guaranteed fantasy football points. He is also going to have so much volume being the overall wide receiver 1 on that great Detroit Lions team. And there's not much competition out in Detroit either. There's Sam Laporta, a second-year tight end, who, yes, is a great tight end, but I don't think he's taking many touches away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. And Jameson Williams, I'm not very high on him, and I don't think the Detroit Lions are either. Also, let's not forget that Amon-Ra St. Brown is 100% Jared Goff's favorite target. And that's why you need to be drafting him in the first round of your fantasy football drafts. If you have the 107 or the 108, and he is there on the board, I'm taking this guy over Justin Jefferson any day of the week. Yes, you could argue Ja'Marr Chase or Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I'm also taking Amon-Ra St. Brown over Ja'Marr Chase. In my opinion, he should be drafted in the top 5 of fantasy football drafts. I think the top 5 should probably be Bijan, CD, Breece Hall, Tyreek Hill, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. But I don't care if you interchange any of those guys. It doesn't even matter if you take this guy first overall, as he has had double-digit fantasy points in 95% of his last 36 games. What other player can you find that of? Some quarterbacks can't even get you 10 points in fantasy football nowadays. You draft Amon-Ra St. Brown in the first round, and then you pair him with a second-round RB like Devon Achane. I'm pretty confident you will finish as a top 3 fantasy football team. And then in the third round, if you grab a guy like Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith or Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm guaranteeing you'll win your fantasy football league. But if you guys like content like this, make sure you comment down below. And if you are drafting any of these guys, make sure you comment down below and make sure you smash the like button and make sure you subscribe. Thanks, guys.